breaking news. A suspended Dauphin County District Judge accused of shooting her ex-boyfriend in his sleep has been found guilty of attempted murder.
It started like any other morning. Still, quiet. The kind of morning where the world hasn't quite woken up yet. But inside one quiet home in Susquehanna Township, Pennsylvania, something unthinkable was happening. A man named Michael McCoy jolted awake. His head was pounding. His vision was gone in one eye. Blood ran down his face from a fresh wound near his temple. He was dizzy, disoriented. He didn't know if he was dying or dreaming. He wasn't dreaming. He had been shot in the head while he slept, and the only other person in the house was his girlfriend. But she wasn't just any woman. She was Judge Sonia McKnight, a well-known figure in Dauphin County, a woman in robes who had spent years sending others to prison. A woman who sat in courtrooms, looked defendants in the eye, and decided their fate. Now she was the one facing judgment. As McCoy cried out for help, she stood there, calm, collected, telling the first of many lies. He shot himself, she claimed, but the evidence said otherwise. The blood, the trajectory, the timeline, the lies. This wasn't the first time Sonia McKnight had crossed a line. Her record was filled with chaos, restraining orders, power abuse, domestic violence allegations, and one ex-husband who barely escaped her grip. Even her own colleagues had suspended her before for violating court ethics. The signs were there, but nobody stopped her, and now someone had almost died. This story isn't just about a judge gone rogue. It's about what happens when someone in power believes they're untouchable. It's about how the justice system failed again and again until it couldn't anymore. Because when a man who loved her tried to walk away, she didn't beg, she pulled the trigger. She had power, a gavel, and a reputation to protect. But when her boyfriend tried to leave, she chose a bullet over a breakup. If you've ever trusted the system to keep people safe, or wondered what happens when the one enforcing the rules starts breaking them, this is the story you need to hear. Subscribe now to True Crime Journal, because this isn't just shocking, it's a warning. Accountability doesn't stop at the robe, and silence has a cost. Sonia McKnight was the kind of woman who made an impression. Confident, well-dressed, and commanding, she didn't just walk into a room, she owned it. When she was elected as a magisterial district judge in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania in 2015, many people saw it as a proud moment. A black woman rising in the ranks of local government? It felt like progress. She spoke with authority. She quoted scripture, and from the outside, she seemed like everything a judge should be, poised, strong, and fair. She even had a nickname, the City Girl Judge. People in Harrisburg and beyond knew her name. But there was another side. Behind the robe and the courtroom smile was someone very different. Someone who didn't just interpret the law, she used it like a weapon. And the more power she got, the bolder she became. Sonia was re-elected in 2021, despite rumblings of misconduct. There were whispers in the courthouse, stories about favoritism, about threats made behind closed doors. Some staff claimed she was impossible to work with. Others said she had a temper, a short fuse, and a long memory. Still, she kept her seat. Her supporters said she was tough. Her critics called her dangerous. And over time, the red flags grew harder to ignore. There were ethics violations, multiple. At one point, she was suspended without pay for over 6 months. There were claims she misused her position, forced employees to break rules, and even interfered with court filings against her. One woman claimed McKnight owed her over $2,000. And when she tried to file a small claim suit, the paperwork mysteriously disappeared. But Sonia always found a way to bounce back. She had friends in law enforcement. She had a platform. And she had the confidence to act like the rules didn't apply to her. In public, she smiled. In private, she controlled. And those closest to her? They learned quickly what happened when you crossed her. Before Michael McCoy, there was Enoch, the man who first learned what it meant to be in a relationship with Sonia McKnight. Their marriage started in 2014, but the romance didn't last. Within 2 years, they were separated and headed for divorce. Enoch tried to move on. He planned to relocate to North Carolina with the help of his sister, hoping to start fresh. But Sonia wasn't ready to let go. In October 2018, things took a dark turn. Enoch was packed and ready to leave Pennsylvania. But before he could hit the road, Sonia snatched his car keys, jumped into his vehicle, and tried to drive off. When Enoch chased after her and tried to pull her from the car, she wouldn't stop. The car rolled straight into a fire hydrant. When police arrived, Sonia flipped the script. She claimed she was simply trying to go to the grocery store and that Enoch had attacked her. Despite his sister's testimony backing Enoch's story, police sided with Sonia, the judge they knew, the authority figure they trusted. Enoch was arrested. She filed a restraining order. He was jailed for 15 days and placed on parole for nearly 2 years. But it didn't end there. Sonia kept coming to his home uninvited. She showed up at his job. She claimed he violated the order 23 times, despite witnesses saying she was the one harassing him. Each time, law enforcement took her side, and if that wasn't enough, she pushed for financial support in the divorce. She wanted a portion of his HVAC technician salary, demanding monthly payments even after destroying his peace. At one point, the restraining order was lowered to allow peaceful contact. So what did she do? She lured him to her home under the guise of moving furniture. When he arrived and started to lift a chair, she ambushed him, shooting him in the groin and the hand. And somehow, she still wasn't held accountable. For Enoch, the marriage didn't just end in heartbreak, it ended in fear. Because when Judge Sonia McKnight decided she was done with you, she didn't just walk away. After the dust finally settled between Sonia McKnight and her ex-husband, another man entered her orbit. His name was Michael McCoy, a hard-working, down-to-earth guy just looking for peace and maybe a little love. But what he found instead was a storm in heels. At first, it was charming. Sonia was smart, successful, and carried herself like a queen. She had power. She had confidence. And she knew how to sweep a man off his feet. Michael fell fast, but so did the red flags. He soon learned that behind her courtroom confidence was a woman who needed control. Their relationship was full of highs and terrifying lows. If Michael didn't answer fast enough, she'd blow up his phone. If he mentioned spending time with friends, she'd accuse him of being unfaithful. Her moods shifted like lightning. One moment sweet, the next storming out the door in rage. Michael tried to stay. He tried to help her through her ups and downs, but it was like trying to hold onto a tornado with your bare hands. By early 2024, he was done, exhausted, emotionally drained. He told Sonia the relationship was over, for good this time. She said she understood, said she respected his decision, even offered to move out of his house. But Michael didn't know who he was dealing with, because when Sonia said goodbye, she didn't mean it. Not really. What she meant was, if I can't have you, no one will. It was the early hours of February 10th, 2024. Michael McCoy was asleep in the home they once shared. The last conversation he had with Sonia ended with her saying she'd pack her things in the morning and leave. He felt relieved. Maybe now he could finally get his peace back. Instead, he woke up to pain. A pain so sharp, so searing, it felt like his brain was on fire. He couldn't see out of one eye. Blood poured down his face. For a second, he thought he was dying, or maybe dreaming. He screamed for help, and standing just a few feet away was Sonia McKnight. She called 911, but when police arrived, she didn't act like a panicked girlfriend. She played the role of the innocent, calm, composed. She told officers that Michael had shot himself, but something wasn't right. The moment Michael was wheeled out of the house in a stretcher, Sonia McKnight shifted into a different mode. Not panic, not sorrow, control. Before the officers could even gather themselves at the scene, the woman who once sat on the bench and delivered justice was already rewriting the story. She ran to the sink and washed her hands, literally. Not metaphorically, not some innocent rinse, a full scrub, trying to erase the trace of gunpowder that might cling to her skin. Then she took off her shirt and dropped it into the toilet, soaking the very evidence that could speak when her words no longer could. But the law knows its own tricks. Officers arrived with body cams rolling. What they captured was eerie. Sonia was calm, too calm. A man had just been shot, possibly dying, and she greeted police like they were guests at brunch. Her voice was even, her story clear. Michael did it to himself. They listened, but they weren't convinced. Forensics swept the house. They gathered her robe, her pajama shorts, a single sock. Later, lab results would reveal what Sonia tried to wash away: gunshot residue, still clinging to her clothes, her skin, even after her attempt to destroy it. Meanwhile, Michael McCoy, now blind in one eye, told his side from a hospital bed. And slowly, piece by piece, the wall Sonia built around herself, her title, her influence, her lies, began to crumble. She had written the laws, but now she was about to be judged by them. By the time the case went to trial, Sonia McKnight was no longer a judge. She was a defendant, and the Commonwealth was ready. The courtroom was packed. A jury had been brought in from Delaware County, far from where Sonia once held power. They didn't know her. They owed her nothing, and they were about to hear 3 days of a story they couldn't ignore. 24 witnesses, 50 pieces of evidence. Every detail mattered. Day one opened with body cam footage, officers entering the home, Sonia standing calmly, Michael's blood still wet on the floor. Then came the forensic experts, gunshot residue analysis, bullet trajectory, fingerprints, her robe, her sock, her hand, all positive. It was the kind of case Sonia used to preside over. Now she was the one facing it. And then came the most powerful moment of all. Michael McCoy took the stand. He described their year-long relationship: rocky, unpredictable, toxic. There were always problems, he said, control issues. She didn't like to let go. On February 9th, he told her it was over. I meant it this time, he told the jury. He went to bed thinking the worst was behind him. Instead, he woke up blind, in pain, with no idea he had been shot. I thought I was having a brain aneurysm, he said, voice shaking. I couldn't see. My head was pounding. I didn't even know I'd been shot. The prosecutor leaned into that moment in his closing argument. He didn't pace. He sat, looked the jury in the eye. You go to sleep, you have a nightmare. You wake up, it's over, he said. Michael McCoy went to sleep and woke up in his nightmare. Then he made it plain. There were only 2 people in that house, only 2, and the one who got shot says he didn't do it. The other is sitting right here. He pointed directly at Sonia McKnight. The courtroom went quiet. Sonia never took the stand. Her defense team claimed the evidence wasn't strong enough. They said it was all circumstantial, but common sense doesn't lie. The jury didn't take long. The jury didn't take long. After 3 intense days of testimony and evidence, they returned in just under 2 hours. Guilty. On all counts she is facing, immediately her bail was revoked. The judge set a new bail at $3 million, and she was taken into custody on the spot. No chance to go home, no press conference, just handcuffs and silence. Sonia now faces up to 60 years in prison. Her sentencing is scheduled for late May. The same halls of justice she once walked as a judge, she'll now walk as an inmate. After years of accusations, violations, and second chances, the system finally caught up to her. For the community, it wasn't just about what Sonia did. It was about who she was supposed to be: a judge, a protector, a leader, someone who knew the law inside and out and still chose to break it. People were angry, hurt, betrayed. How did she stay in power for so long, was the question echoing across social media, newsrooms, and barbershops alike. Because once the verdict was in, so was the full picture of her past. The restraining order abuse, the ethics violations, the car theft stunt with her ex-husband, the false charges, the evidence tampering during her son's arrest, the arrogance, the excuses, the manipulation of the very system she swore to uphold. All of it came flooding back. There were renewed calls for judicial reform. People demanded stricter background checks, more oversight, and consequences that actually stick, even for people in power. Because this wasn't just a fall from grace. This was a wake-up call. Sonia McKnight used her title like armor. She thought the robe would protect her, that the courtroom belonged to her, that the badge she wore and the friends she had in law enforcement would always clean up the mess. But power without accountability isn't justice. It's a weapon. Michael McCoy knows that all too well. He now lives permanently blind in one eye, waking up every day with the reminder of that night burned into his vision, literally and emotionally. And though he survived, the trauma didn't end in that bedroom. She wanted to control everything, he told reporters. Even when I said it was over, she couldn't accept it. Michael never expected to fear the woman he once loved, and certainly not to survive a bullet from someone sworn to protect others. But this story, as heartbreaking as it is also proof that the truth can win. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no titles, just time. And while that may not undo the damage she caused, it sends a message. To anyone watching, to anyone abusing their power, to anyone hiding behind a title. Justice is still possible. Even when the system fails, eventually the truth shows up in the courtroom. If you or someone you love is in a toxic relationship, don't wait. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. If you believe the truth deserves a spotlight, even when it's messy, subscribe to True Crime Journal now.